Good evening, and thank you all for being here. For Artists Moving Through Time is a program of Pentacle's Legacy Project. Throughout the year, Pentacle is celebrating its 45th anniversary by digging into its archives and sharing rare gems from dance history. Be sure to sign up on our mailing list to hear more about virtual and in-person events like this one, and follow us on social media for weekly posts from the Pentacle Legacy Project. We also want to remind you that tomorrow is Giving Tuesday, a day when nonprofits like Pentacle raise most of their contributed income from individuals. If you feel moved by the program you watched tonight, please consider donating to Pentacle. Text the word Pentacle to 44321 and follow the prompts to make a secure donation. Any amount you can give will help support hardworking artists like the four you will hear from tonight. Thank you, and now on to the show.
Hello, my name is Anna Brady Marcus, and I'm the director of the Pentacle Legacy Project. I began working at Pentacle over 20 years ago, and since then I have had the privilege to serve hundreds of performing artists at various points in their careers with management and administrative support. Some of these artists, like the four guest artists here tonight, have risen to the top of their fields and made lasting contributions to the art form of dance. In honor of Pentacle's 45th anniversary, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce four iconic guest artists who came to Pentacle at various points in our history and continue to work with us today. Gus Solomons Jr. began training in modern dance and ballet while studying architecture at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He was a member of the Boston dance company Dance Makers, where he began his experimental solo choreography. In 1962, Gus moved to New York City, where he worked alongside other dance experimentalists and performed with the companies of Pearl Lang, Donald McHale, Joyce Trissler, Paul Sanasardo, Martha Graham, and most significantly with the Merce Cunningham Company from 1965 to 1968. In 1972, he formed his company Solomon's Company Dance and created works that melded postmodern concepts with his architectural interests. In 1996, he formed the collective Paradigm to promote and celebrate the talents of mature artists on stage. He is also an accomplished dance reviewer, and his reviews have appeared in The Village Voice, Ballet News, Attitude, Dance Magazine, and the Chronicle of Higher Education, among others. His most recent reviews can be found on the website solomons-says.com. Welcome, Gus.
Hi, thanks. Nice to be here. Oh, well, no, good day, good, whatever. Morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you're watching this. Good.
Sarupa Sen began her training in Odissi dance with the architect of the form, Guru Kelucharan Mahapatra, and also studied with Guru Protima Gari, who is the founder of Nrittyagram Dance Village. She trained in Abhinaya, which is the narrative dance form, under the tutelage of a great Abhinaya artist, Guru Kalanidhi Narayanan. After finishing a degree in economics, she came to Nrittyagram Dance Village and became the first student to graduate from the Nrittyagram program. For over 2 decades, Sarupa has researched and expanded the dance vocabulary of Odissi dance and developed an aesthetic style that distinguishes the dancers from the Nrittyagram Gurukula, or school. Sarupa became the artistic director of the Nrittyagram Dance Ensemble in 1997 and has choreographed many evening-length performances that have been seen around the world. She was an international choreographer in residence at the American Dance Festival in 2000, artist in residence at the Baryshnikov Art Center in 2016, and has received numerous awards, including the Sangeet Natak Academy Puraskar in 2018, which is the highest award for the performing arts in India. Welcome, Sarupa. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
Deva Lois Fearon is a critically acclaimed choreographer, dancer, and educator. Born in Jamaica and raised in the Bronx, her choreography is said to embody a tenacious virtuosity honed over 12 years with the Stephen Petronio Company. In 2016, Deva established her dance company, Deva Lois Fearon Dance, to highlight injustice and inequality by pushing artistic and social boundaries and sparking vital conversations about change. Fearon's work has been presented nationally and internationally, including at New York City venues such as the Joyce Theater and the Metropolitan Museum of Art. She has completed commissions for the Bronx Museum of the Arts and Barnard College, among many others. Her abundant honors and awards include a Bessie Award in 2017 and Dance NYC's Dance Advancement Fund Award. Hello and welcome, Deva.
Hello, I am so honored to be here. And hi to the prestigious guests that I am honored to share this platform with.
And last we have Efrat Bounce Ashiri, is a choreographer whose work is rooted in various African-American and Latinx vernacular dances, including breaking, hip hop, house, and Vogue. Her company, Efrat Ashiri Dance, is a dynamic group of multifaceted dancers dedicated to exploring the inherently complex and dynamic qualities of these forms. Among her many honors and awards, Efrat is a 2016 Bessie Award winner for Innovative Achievement in Dance. Welcome, Efrat. Great to see you.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with all of you tonight.
Thank you all for being here. It is amazing to have the four of you together in one room to talk about your work and your relationship with Pentacle. First, we'll start with a short excerpt from Gus Solomon Jr.'s 1988 performance of Mythosaur at St. Mark's Church in the Bowery. Gus, before we watch the clip, could you tell us a little bit about this piece and your collaboration with the musician Toby Twining?
I joined Pentacle years after the company began officially, or was incorporated. And I think Pentacle may have helped me with that, even, getting my 501c3. And I think a lot of the dances that I made back then are not even on tape anywhere. This piece, I wanted somehow to erase everything but my torso. And so I did that by wearing a long black skirt and a skull cap. I was too chicken to shave my head at that point. So the whole dance is about what happens in the torso. And the collaboration was what I felt was a real collaboration. Toby and I were in the room together, and I would show him a step and he would make some music to that step, and then he would play some music and I would make a step to that. So it was a real one-to-one collaboration all the way through.
So Gus, you and I were talking a little while ago, and I asked you, when did you first start to use Pentacle's services? And then you asked me, well, how long has Pentacle been around? To which I said, since 1976. And you replied, that's when I started with Pentacle. So this means that you are the longest served artist in Pentacle's history, 45 years and counting.
Like a cake.
What led you to seek out Pentacle's fiscal administration way back then in the 1970s?
Well, I knew I needed some. I had just become officially a 501c3, and I had no idea how to fill out all those forms or make all those applications. And Pentacle seemed to be the answer to my needs, because they managed many companies. They did the things that companies needed. And I don't know, I was lucky enough to find you all. It must have been through somebody who also was an early adopter. But anyway, yeah, it was on 72nd Street, on the corner of 72nd Street and Broadway. Crazy little office with rickety stairs. before he-
Yeah, I think that was the first official office Pentacle had.
Right.
And then over the years, your company evolved. How did your needs for the fiscal administration change, or what kept you with Pentacle all this time?
The fiscal needs never changed. I kept having to, I kept needing those fiscal services. And as the company got bigger, I needed them more. And so I thought, well, Pentacle's still here. I will just stay with Pentacle if they'll have me. And I did.
Well, thank you. So next we're going to look at a short excerpt from a documentary film on Nrityagram Dance Ensemble that was made in 2002 by Sanjeev Chatterjee.
Shri was my very first production for Nrityagram. We started off in this little dance village, and we had no way of actually going to a place like America at that point. So we were working really hard, and for the first time in 1993, we went to America with our production, which was all classical traditional work. So in 2002, I created this first evening length work. It was the first time working with music that we commissioned. It was the first time breaking the pieces up to do one section of traditional work and one section of non-traditional work. It took us 2 years to put it together, but it was a fantastic experience.
Can you tell us the story of how Nrityagram came to join Pentacle's roster?
We started in 1993. We were just Protima Bedi and Party. Protima Bedi was my guru and the one who started the dance village, Nrityagram. And she was the big star, even in India. And an Odissi dancer herself. And she got a bunch of performances lined up for her. And we were the little hanger-ons. We were like, and Party. And so we went on tour and we did that whole route of, for days being on buses, going from place to place and, barely managing, all locked up in one little motel room, sometimes, very little resources to do much. And we were struggling artists like everybody else. And then in 1996, we got this fabulous opportunity to perform in New York. I think it was the K Playhouse at Hunter College. And there was a small interview that Pratima, who was my guru, she did that morning. And it came out. It was just a small, 4-inch column. And we were all ready, waiting to perform. And then they kept sending us this message backstage saying that another 5 minutes, getting delayed 5 minutes. And we didn't know what was going on. And it was basically people who had come with this little, the New York Times in their hand. And, there was a line around the block for will call. And that's why it was getting delayed. We didn't know what was going on. Finally, we performed. None of us knew what it meant to perform in New York, completely, without a clue. And we got this really amazing review in the New York Times. And that at that point, we were approached by Sheldon Soffer, which was the other management company, and John Clausen was working with them. And I think he joined Pentacle in 1998 or so, and along when it closed down, and then we moved with him. And ever since then, we've been with Pentacle. It's been 2 decades, actually. So we're very happy.
Yeah, that's amazing. You've been with us that whole time. What were your goals at the time that you started touring and that you were on Pentacle's roster? Because you had been in the village for so long, what was the new idea for Nrityagram?
From the very beginning, definitely my guru, Pratima's, her vision was that Nrityagram should be a place for international interaction. And of course, the preservation and the popularization of the traditional classical dance forms of India itself. And I think Nrityagram has come to the mainstream because of Pentacle promoting us. And, Lynn, who's our manager, always says that I think it was Sophie first and then Sandy, they fight tooth and nail to get us the best that they can. And you need someone like that if you want to, be where you have to be as artists. And I think that was the main reason that, we have brought Indian classical dance all the way up. We are one of the main reasons that other dancers in India have had the opportunity to perform everywhere. So I think that Nithiram has been instrumental in that, and only because of being represented by you, we are like very happy. It's wonderful to be associated with you.
Wow, that's a great story. Thank you. So now we're going to look at two excerpts of two works by Deva Lois Viren. Consider Water is a short dance film she made with filmmaker Nigel Ho-Sang in 2014, and Power Inside and Between, a site-specific dance she made for the Rubin Museum of Art in 2019. Deva, can you give us some background on these two pieces?
Consider Water was my very first piece that I made for my then dance company in utero. It kind of like created the need for me to start my dance company. And that piece was born out of a need to call attention to local and global water issues that I think ever since creating that work in 2014 has become a little bit more pressing for Americans. I'm on a very short list of environmentally conscious choreographers. And, it felt weird to be out here, doing that work. But so crucial and important. And now it's kind of like having its moment where people are like, oh yes, we do need to be considering our natural resources. And so that was, the piece that became an evening length piece that premiered at the Joyce. So what we're going to see is just my solo version of the work that was done while I was still in the Petronio companies. So a lot of like the movements still I can see has that cross between of my Caribbean heritage bubbling up, and then the classic Stephen Petronio Western movement vocabulary as well. The Power Inside and Between piece was made in 2019. I was 3 months postpartum. I had left the Petronio company by then. It was commissioned by Pentacle. It was their program that they had where they were bringing commissioned works into museum spaces.
Oh, I want to see more of both of them. So Deva, you're one of those rare artists who is not only an extremely talented choreographer and performer, but you also have studied the management side of the art form. Can you tell us how and why you first became involved with Pentacle?
So I had been dancing with the Petronio company at that time, I want to say maybe 10 years or so. And I had just gotten my master's degree, or was almost about to get my master's degree, considering that, where Efrat and I went to the same University of Wisconsin program. And I was approaching, the retirement age for dance, before I knew that was like a farce. And I think about people like Gus Solomon, and it's like, please, what was I thinking? But my family is Caribbean. And so I always had the fear of like, you need a backup plan, you need a backup plan, you need to get a real job. So the immigrant mentality. There is a trope about the Jamaican who has 100 jobs. So I am kind of a stereotype in that sense of like, I'm Jamaican, I'm an immigrant, you're always hustling, and I need 1,000 jobs just in case, So not only did I study the administrative side, but I also went and I got my degree so that just in case, I have like a 10-year academic resume to stand on as well, because why not? That's what you do when you're trying to survive. And so I did a little bit of research and I came upon Pentacle Cultivating Leadership in Dance internship, where I was the oldest intern with a decade of experience in the field, with people who were like my students at Purchase age. And we would actually, we did something with dance on camera, and they were like, wait, David, that's you. And I'm like, yeah, I know, it's weird because I'm here with you all, but it at the time, it didn't occur to them how, someone like me, usually people would go take the choreography route and not necessarily the managerial route as well. But I wanted to do managerial first before diving deep into choreography. So I was very much so interested in making sure I knew how to make a budget, I knew how to write a grant, and I knew how to do the things to kind of bring an infrastructure to the company to kind of bring me to where I wanted to go. And Pentacle has been there every step of the way.
Yeah, so you have remained involved with Pentacle as you've gone into different stages of your career and creating your company. So can you talk a little bit about the different aspects of Pentacle you've used?
I started realizing like, oh, I need a fiscal sponsor. And so then I joined Unique while I was a intern. And then from Unique, once I got the Joyce, and they were like, hey, can you send us over your signed contract, which was 60 pages. I was like, okay, I guess I need to up things a little bit. And then I did FIA projects. And from there, once I started getting calls from, Victory Dance and all these other places, I was like, well, I guess I need to not just be a pickup company, but I need this year round. So as my career grew, I kept graduating steps with Pentacle, and also getting my own interns as well. So I kind of like pay it forward in that way.
Thank you. That's wonderful. So now we're going to look at an excerpt of Efrat Ashiri's Odeon from 2019 at the Joyce Theater. Efrat, can you tell us about the mix of dance styles you used in this work, and also why you chose to work with the music of the Brazilian composer Ernesto Nazareth?
Ernesto Nazareth's music was first introduced to me by my brother Ehud Asheri, who you'll hear on keys, wonderful jazz pianist and composer. And I used to always go to his gigs as a kid, and I would notice that he would play like sort of what's considered, some people call it traditional or historic jazz, very, like standard jazz tunes from like the 30s and 40s. And then sometimes he would play something that sounded like samba to me. And I was a big fan of samba because I learned about samba through my interest in house music and all. And hanging out with a lot of like some Brazilians from Newark that were amazing dancers. So I was like, oh, you're playing samba in the middle of a jazz set. And he said, well, it's not quite samba. It's like earlier samba. It's called choro. And then there's other rhythms in there, like traditional Brazilian rhythms. Anyway, when my brother and I collaborated for the first time in 2016, and when we decided to work together again, he suggested, oh, you always like Nazareth's music. Go check out more of his music. So I got to listen to sort of the canon of his music, and I knew immediately that I had to make a piece to it. Because Nazareth was reflecting the hybrid cultural environment of Brazil at the time, which included European influences, Afro-Brazilian influences, and traditional Brazilian influences, and communities all coming together in that very complex history that is Brazil. Musically, there was so much to investigate. And because of the clear West African rhythmic roots of the music, and you hear it a lot in the percussion, that connected to all the dances that we do as a company, which are African American and Latinx vernacular dance. So in the excerpt, you're going to see breaking movement, you're going to see house footwork, you're going to see Latin hustle partnering, you're going to see Vogue, right? And it's really, even though sometimes the music sounds really classical because of the piano, the the deep influences of classical romantic music that Nazareth was inspired by, that root, that Afro-Brazilian root is strong. And so that was my hope, to kind of bring all these through lines together in the work.
It felt like you were mashing up time a little bit, you know, something that sounded older with these contemporary images. Like Deva, you're also using a couple of Pentacle services at the same time, in your case, booking and fiscal sponsorship. Can you talk about how that's worked for you and
Oh, yes. Yes. It has been life-changing, I should say. With Odeon, well, I guess for Odeon, we received the National Dance Project Award, which was incredible because it's a really comprehensive award that gives you support from New England Foundation for the Arts, gives you support to not only create and develop the work, but then subsidizes the tour. And, you know, it's really a dream come true. And through that, you're also kind of on the radar of more presenters because you're part of this group of companies that received the award. And so with the tour subsidy in that, you start to think like, or you start to get more bookings, right? And we started going on tour for the first time, you know, kind of continuously and regularly as a company. And in the beginning, I tried to do everything on my own. I didn't really know better. I mean, I was negotiating contracts, I was doing all the payments, and I was, you know, come tax time, sending out, you know, 1099s, and it was a lot. And you know, there were some lovely presenters that I worked with early in that process, and they really were encouraging me to get help. You know, they were like, you're going to get burnt out. You need support. And it was really amazing to be able to find both those kinds of support in the same organization. So, you know, it's funny when the dancers started getting paid, you know, through direct deposit, through FIA. That was like the biggest deal. It was just kind of like, oh, you're not sending us just like a check? This is legit. It's funny. And it's so much more relaxing during tax time to know like all that is taken care of by FIA. And then of course, in terms of booking, I mean, it's so hard to always like I should say this, the year and a half that I spent like really negotiating contracts gave me more of an understanding and a profound respect for, you know, for what Sandy and in the beginning it was Sandy and Natalie were doing to negotiate these contracts and get us, you know, as much support as possible, you know. And I was like, yeah, this is amazing to have someone doing this on your behalf and really fighting for you to get bookings that really support what you're doing and to try to really get more continuous work, which when you're being an artist and you're trying to create and then you're trying to do all of that as well, it's like something's gonna, you know, you're gonna have to sacrifice something, and that something is usually your art, which is complete, like, we can't do that. We're here to make our work. And so being with Pentacle with booking just was such a relief, took so much off of my plate. And it's been a really, really, beautiful partnership. So super grateful.
Wonderful. Gus, I'd like to look at a clip now of your work for Paradigm entitled A Thin Frost. So this is from a performance you did with Carmen de Lavalade and Dudley Williams at the University of Texas, Arlington-Fort Worth in 2015. Can you tell us about this piece, how you made it, and where you ended up performing it?
Carmen and Dudley and I would get together on weekends and play with movement and had a good time doing it. And I think our very first performance may have been for Dance Now. And then we were asked to do it someplace else and someplace else, someplace else. And before you knew it, we were coming around to the same people asking us again, and we still had only one piece. So I made another piece. And then we thought, this is fun, let's keep doing it, but I don't want to be the choreographer. So I started to commission other choreographers, mostly young, to make work, to see what they could do with bodies that were not supple and able to do all the things that they would dream of. And we've danced a lot of different places. We haven't been, it's all been domestic, but we were down in Virginia, we were down in Texas, we were in Santa Barbara, we were in Vancouver, and the company gradually expanded because Carmen and Dudley and I realized that we couldn't do a whole evening by ourselves anymore. So we started acquiring other people who were over the magic age of 50 and who still wanted to dance or were primarily performers. And the company grew to, I guess, 8 people finally in 2011 when we did our swan song. But it was an idea that was universally recognized as a good idea because there were so many dancers who weren't yet through. And yet the field had said, you're finished because you're old. And we said, we'll show you. And so that was Paradigm.
And you sure did. Let's look at this clip. That is so fun. And you're all such stunning performers still. And there's nothing lost there, I don't think. Can you talk a little bit about what it was like to perform and tour well into your 60s, 70s, and now 80s?
When I chose dance over architecture to be my career commitment, it wasn't for 15 years and then retire and do something else. It was dance. And so I kept redefining what it was that my body could, that my instrument could do. And it can always do something. As Carmen says, everybody has a story to tell. And you just have to find that story. And so that's what we did. And we worked with a lot of choreographers whose work was nothing like Dance for Old People. Larry Kegwin, the one, who else? Well, we did actually, we did the first, I think our first commission was for Jeffrey Holder, who is who was Carmen's husband, and an incredible theatrical presence. And we've had Kate Weir, and a lot of impressive young choreographers whose work I enjoyed, and I wanted to see how they would enjoy working with us. And we didn't have, very often we didn't have to say, no, I can't do that. Because if wherever we did say that, they would say, oh, well, then try this. Because there's always something else you can do that will express the idea. It's not restricted to age or ability or mobility, as I'm finding out. Now, my latest test was done with a walker as a partner, which I'm hoping will be a temporary situation, but there it is.
Well, we're glad you're still
not stopping.
We're so glad you're not stopping. Sarupa, Nrityagram is more than just a touring dance company. It's also a village in India where you and your dancers live and work together, as well as teach and serve in the community. Your guru and founder, Pratima Gari, said, Nrityagram was a place where nothing exists except dance.
My name is Shurupa Sen, and I am the artistic director for Nrityagram, India. I have lived and worked here for the past 31 years. We are a community of artists, and our only focus is dance. Our religion is dance, our ideology is dance, so it's a very distinct and different kind of artistic community. This is our dining hall, where we sit together and eat on the floor. It's a common space for community meals. We lead a holistic way of life, growing a lot of our own food. We are trying to be self-sustaining, and we've developed a sort of barter system where we share our food with our neighbors and they share their food with us. This is our amphitheater. It is built to house almost 2,000 people for our festival, Vasanta Habba, a dusk to dawn festival. We have 2 or 3 beautiful dance studios. This is called the Kathak Dance Hall. Finally, to the heart of this dance village, the Odissi Gurukula, where I have lived and worked. I consider this our sacred space.
So Sarupa, I would like to know, how do you maintain and bring the spirit of the Nrityagram village with you when you're away from it and when you go on tour? How does it permeate everything you do?
It's something that I've noticed very actively when we are touring, is that everything that your mind and you're being exposed to at every point is impacting your brain all the time, and it informs your work. I think almost instantly, leaves an impact which somehow finds its way inside the work. And because we do a very particular kind of dance, which is in a way deeply connected to nature. And that is the reason why we built this place away from the distractions of the city, and we have this sort of holistic life that we lead. There are very few takers for this kind of a life, because it means that you do this one thing. The only religion you have, like I said, is just dance. There's nothing else here. You just have to love to do what you want, you love to dance. But when you're traveling, the essence of who we are is really in our work. And I've always thought that the project is always going to be me. I am the project that I have to work with, and all of the work comes from inside out. The journeys in the end for all artists, dancers, really is the same. And I think it's a spiritual journey for each and every one of us. And the only thing I can say is that we travel as a community also. We travel as a group of dancers. We live together and we practice together 24/7. So when we travel, we are taking that same energy with us. We almost, we keep the same kind of schedule on the tour. And I think it would be different if we lived anywhere else. My dance would be different. We would be different. It's very intrinsically connected to where we live. So we preserve it.
Remarkable. Yeah. We're going to move on to Deva. Deva, in the summer of 2020, you premiered a new multimedia work called Time to Talk, which came out virtually during the pandemic and right after the killing of George Floyd. Can you tell us what Time to Talk is about and how your goals for the piece shifted with the extraordinary events of that time?
So Time to Talk was actually my thesis. And it was born from my experience as a graduate student at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, which Efrat was kind of in the middle of that whole interesting time. And it was 2014 when the massacre of African Americans. And so it happened at a church. And I remember it was 2 weeks into being in Milwaukee, and the absence of the grief of such a tragedy was palpable. It just was heartbreaking to be grieving, people that I didn't know, that the society didn't care to know, yet the murderer was everywhere. Everyone knew the murderer's name, still knows the murderer's name. Going into classes, it was like nothing ever happened. Dance as usual. And I was losing my mind. And I was like, we got to talk. Like, this is insane. What's happening? So it threw me into a lot of research where I wanted to find out what in the world was going on. Because I was living a twilight zone of like, my reality was one reality, and the individuals that I was living with, the majority of white America, had a whole nother reality. And I was waking up to that as a Jamaican immigrant, which Black Americans have known, forever, right? So I was waking up to that reality. And so I needed to educate myself about American history, Black American identity formation. And that was what the thesis was. And I made the work, which I think was ahead of its time. When I was doing the work, no one wanted to see it, in terms of the New York City or dance public per se. Consider Water was getting a lot more, it's, attention. That's a much more user-friendly piece. Oh, we can talk about water and climate change, but let's not talk about race. I'm really, it makes me uncomfortable. So that's where the piece was born and kind of hibernated. And theaters were interested in picking it up because it is a dance theater piece. There's talking, there's props, set, and all of those things. And so I did perform it in theaters, but the dance world proper, there wasn't a place for it. And so it was important for me to build a place for it. And so I created the virtual theater in the midst of the pandemic. And it just made sense that that was the first piece I premiered, because I feel like America was ready to receive it before it, not so much.
was part of the online audience when you premiered Time to Talk, and I took part in the discussion afterwards. And what I remember was it was really healing at that time to talk with other people and share how we've observed systemic racism showing up in our own communities, and also just to acknowledge how hard this work is. It felt very daunting, but I really appreciated that you created that space for us to talk about it and begin the conversations. Now I'd like to know, given your experiences with Time to Talk, how do you envision presenting your work going forward? What methods do you want to keep, and what do you want to do differently?
After that talk, which, I think 200 people came to the actual virtual premiere, and over 80 people stayed for an hour and talked, and, trying to hold space and trying to create structure for people all over with various backgrounds, various entry points into race. And I needed to take a break again. So it's one of those works where I have to pull myself out, heal, and recover. And where I'm finding myself now is building an army of young, hungry students that are ready to do that work. So I started a mentorship program that I launched about a couple of months ago, where it's particularly about arts, academia, dance, and social justice. So when I create that space again, which a lot of people have been saying, hey, when are you going to do it again? When are you going to do it again? I'm like, you don't understand. It's a lot. So I'll have my team of people who, after doing such work, it's not all me that needs to help them along their journey, that there's a community of people who have the capacity for the work. And so that's where it's at now, where I have my mentorship, I have my virtual theater, and I have a team of individuals that can help continue the dialogue.
That's great. I'm glad you're building the infrastructure to continue it, but not taking it all on yourself.
Shout out to Pentacle for infrastructure building.
Right. Efrat, during the pandemic, you were hard at work developing a new evening length show entitled Underscored. Can you tell us about the intergenerational cast in this piece and how you were able to create it during quarantine?
Well, it was supposed to premiere October 2020, and then it couldn't for obvious reasons. It was commissioned by Works in Process at the Guggenheim. We were going to premiere it there. But since that couldn't happen, we were fortunate that Works in Process, created this model of the bubble residencies. So we were able to workshop it in those spaces. We went first to Katzman in Tivoli, New York. But before that, I actually just felt like we had a year and a half of touring dates canceled for Odeon. And not like continuous, but spread out over a year and a half. And I just felt like we needed to stay connected. Like I could sense, at first with the company, we'd just get together on Zoom or WhatsApp video and we would just chat and see. And I was kind of feeling things out, like, should we rehearse? And everyone was like, yes. So we just started rehearsing right here, just in these little boxes. I had this thing. I was like, I'm going to make the longest phrase ever. I'm just going to add 8 counts every day. That's it. And then we're going to do it to a really slow song. Then we're going to do it medium tempo. And then we're going to do it to a fast song. And it was a way for us to stay connected, to stay kind of physically a little, I don't know. Everything was we were so changed by everything that was going on. And so there was a way that we were pushing ourselves to just at least stay connected in that way. And so that when we got the opportunity to do the bubble residency, although it was a shock, it was a beautiful shock to be back together, but it was still, we had growing pains to try to come back into the work in person after we'd been in our own living rooms, isolated from each other. We did have a chance to create an iteration of Underscored that I think reflected what was, a little nugget of this piece that was reflecting sort of how we felt so isolated, and then slowly were able to kind of reach out and touch each other and be in the room, and that's the excerpt you'll see. Yeah. This piece is really about celebrating those conversations, those family bonds that we have with each other while we're all here to do that. Video features the legendary Archie Burnett and Michelle Saunders, two elders in the underground dance community. And Underscored is really a piece that is about that conversation that happens organically in the underground dance scene in New York City on dance floors across the city every night pre-pandemic, where, you know, you're dancing with people of all different generations. And my generation is really fortunate that, like, when I started dancing at the clubs, I got to dance with the people that were there when things started in the early 70s.
That looks so joyful.
We were happy to be back together.
How has it been? I think you've started touring again a little bit with Odeon.
I mean, big shout out to Pentacle, because during the pandemic, since we had so many cancellations, Sandy was working really hard to try to stay connected to the different presenters and see what the possibilities were for like virtual programming, whether it was workshop or like behind the scenes, you know, kind of get into the choreographic process or meet the cast or learn more about the cultural roots of these dance forms. And so that was like a lifeline for us as a company. It's funny, now that we're back to touring, I still kind of don't believe it until I'm on the plane going to the place. And then it feels like, are people going to come? You know, like now there's all different kind of rules and regulations depending where you go. So it does still, it feels like there is a level of trepidation and excitement at the same time, because, you know, the world has forever changed. So it's just one step at a time, I would say.
Yeah. I feel like this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to have the four of you together in conversation. I'm wondering if you have anything you want to ask each other, or
Gus, you always keep going with so much grace. How do you do it?
Dancing is what I do. And it's what I know best. And I have a great love or hate relationship with it. But when I'm around it, I'm infected by it and affected by it in ways that are undefinable and undefined. So that's why I enjoy reviewing dance, going to see what other people are up to. So I stay abreast of the field without trying to imitate what the children are doing now, and finding a way to adapt what I'm able to do with what they're interested in doing. And I have had the opportunity to, coincidentally, to be a, what is it called, a choreographic advisor to both Deva and Efrat during the course of those 10 years. And it's all coming together today. Because I've learned things today about Efrat and about Deva. In fact, your name, I always thought it was Devawa. It's Deva Lois. Okay. That makes more sense in a way.
You could call me Devalua. I like it.
Yes. And so that the cross-generational exchange keeps happening, and it all informs what you do next and how you feel about what's going on. And unfortunately, Sarupa, we can't hang out.
You should come visit.
Oh, That means getting on a plane.
Yes.
That was actually my question for you was what is it like in terms of like, do you do any collaborations or
It would be great to have collaborative work. I don't know how, but surely, of course. Maybe Pentacle can do that for us.
yeah.
Ooh, yeah. Okay. A special Pentacle artist residency at Narichigram.
Yes, we have the space. You should come.
Well, I want to thank Gus Solomons Jr., Sarupa Sen, Deva Loisviren, and Efrat Asheri for taking the time to talk with me today and to share their work. It was an honor and a joy to speak with you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Likewise.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you to everybody.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much. Great to see everyone.
Good to see
Yes.
you all. Yeah.
And good night.
Oh, good
Good night.
Thank you for listening to Pentacle's Legacy Conversation with Gus Solomon Jr., Sarupa Sen, Deva Loisviren, and Efrat Asheri. If you were moved by what these artists had to say, please give a donation in their honor to Pentacle. Simply text the word Pentacle to 44321, and you will be given a link to Pentacle's secure donation page. Stay in touch for more information on Pentacle's Legacy Project and upcoming events like this one by going to pentacle.org and signing up for our newsletter. Thank you again for your support, and have a wonderful holiday season.